On today's show, we're joined by Frans van Hulle, CEO of one of the top lead generation companies in the world. He discusses why their company rebranded to px.com and gets into the specifics of what value and advantages that has added for their company. Enjoy the show. First, serious about online trading? Secure your funds, keep your merchandise safe, and use a company that keeps the buyer and seller protected the whole way through. That's escrow.com. Payments you can trust. Finally, if you're a domain name investor, don't you have unique legal needs that require domain name technical know-how and industry experience? That's why you need Stephen Lieberman of Greenberg & Lieberman or Jason Schaefer of Esquire.com. Go search for Jason Schaefer or Stephen Lieberman on DomainSherpa, watch their interviews, and you can see for yourself that they can clearly explain issues, can help you with buy-sell agreements, deal with website content issues and UDRP actions, and even help you write your website terms and conditions. Stephen Lieberman and Jason Schaefer are the lawyers to call for internet legal issues. See for yourself at Esquire.com or APlegal.com. Hey, Sherpa Network. Thanks for joining us today. We're delighted to have back Frans van Hulle of px.com, recently rebranded from ReviMedia, and Andrew Rosner, his good friend from Panama. Both of you joining us today from different ends of the world. Welcome back.
Thank you, Tess. Happy to be back.
Yeah, great to have you back, Frans.
Yeah.
So Frans, you thought about doing this interview from Andrew's old place in Panama. We hear you not only do acquire great domains, you acquire great properties.
Yeah. So when I met Andrew, I think 5 years ago or so, and since then it has been costing me a lot of money, basically. So he has been selling me domains, properties. And the amounts are getting bigger and bigger every time we make a new deal. So I'm getting concerned for the next one.
Hey, listen, I'm elevating your game. You know, You got to spend money to make money. I'm making you stretch to the next tier.
Tell that to my wife because she doesn't understand.
Now, Frans, one of the last times I spoke to you on the phone, you were in the hospital while your wife was giving birth. Do you remember that?
Oh, wow. Actually, I don't. Is that true?
It is. And I was like, Frans, I don't need to talk to you. Hang up, go. And you were like, nah, she's busy. I think
the contractions were not that strong yet. So I think I was in a safe place at that time.
Yes, I think so. But quite the story all the same. So Frans, ReviMedia, which has been around since 2010, one of the biggest in its space, and you've recently rebranded as px.com this month.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so we maybe I can give some context around that. So we started as a lead generation company in 2010, mainly focused on verticals like insurance, mortgage, the home services space. And part of our DNA is technology. So we have been developing our platform since day one. And the platform also enabled us to be competitive and to make a difference. And it allowed us to grow. And you're right. So 2 weeks ago, we rebranded to PX, basically the whole company, and PX is the name of our platform. So, basically we are the platform. And that's called PX.
Very cool. So you were ReviMedia from 2010 till 2016. Then you acquired px.com from Media Options and ran parallel brands and with the intention to merge them. Is that right? And then
it would make me look like a really smart person that if I knew in 2016 that we would merge in 2018, but that's actually not true. So when we started, so we had ReviMedia, and at the time we made a decision to separate our platform from ReviMedia and sell it as a separate product, as a SaaS software product. And we did that. So we set up a team in LA, and they were operating under the name PX. And we have been modestly successful. So we have been licensing our platform to a couple of hundred clients. But we felt that we didn't maximize the potential. We were not leveraging all the stuff we had on the ReviMedia site. And, in 2017, we started to discuss like, okay, what could we do to leverage what we have on the ReviMedia side, being, the publishers and the lead buyers and the clients who are using PX today. And basically, after brainstorms and a lot of internal discussions, we decided to basically put those two models together. So our PX clients who are using our platform, they also have access to our what we call open exchange. So basically, when you are a PX client, you have access to all the publishers connected to PX, and you also have access to all the lead buyers that are connected to PX. So basically, we're, I would say, call it the Amazon of leads, where we basically allow our clients to create their own shop on our platform, buying or selling leads, or both.
And I think you're very modest. I think you're not only the Amazon in terms of how it can be done, but also in terms of market dominance. Is that an accurate statement, or should we have Drew answer that?
I've not been accused many times of being too modest, so thank you. But so we in the verticals in which we are active, we've really we were able to gain a good market share, and I think we are a leading player in for example mortgage and home services. But it can always be better, and those markets are huge, and this is just the beginning.
I think that you saying you'd like to say you were that smart that you planned this all along. I actually think you're smarter this way. That, I think that you understood the two-letter.com's value and potential value, and you acquired it, ran it as a parallel brand, and then really dug into what does this mean, and developed a new strategy based on that. And that's really the steps I'd like to take you through in today's conversation.
Thank you, Tess. If I may to respond to that. So I think the one thing that we have been doing right, and we being my business partner and myself and our great team, is that we're constantly adapting our business model and our business, and we don't get stuck in a certain track, and we're also not scared to jump tracks and to change directions. And we've done that a couple of times. And in my opinion, that's the only way, especially in a bootstrapped, especially in the beginning of a startup, you need to have that flexibility. So I'm happy to admit that creating PX as a parallel brand was not the smartest decision at the time, and it worked out relatively well. But now we have a much better story, and we adapted the story and our strategy based on changes and input we got and learned along the way. So it's always a big compliment when people refer to the changes we made, because that's part of our success.
I'm reading a book right now called Matchmakers: The New Economics of Multi-Sided Platforms. Something. I think that's the name.
I thought you started dating.
Huh?
I thought you started dating matchmakers. I mean,
no. And it's a fascinating book. I mean, in the end, I guess it's nothing new, right? We've been watching all of the most successful technology companies basically over the last decade, if not 2 decades, have been these multi-sided platforms. I don't really know how long we've been acknowledging them as that, right? That Uber is a multi-sided platform. They're a technology company that's created a platform that connects drivers with passengers. You know, you're a technology company that's created a platform that connects somebody who wants a service, or I guess services, and with somebody who sells those services. And it's really a super fascinating book, because, you know, when you start listening, it's like, you know, this can be applied to basically every single element of life where people have an interaction with any company or service or product. But you've got companies like Amazon who are just quickly, you know, they've got such a strong platform that they're just swallowing up every opportunity to leverage that platform in any other industry. And I imagine you guys are and will continue to do the same across different verticals, et cetera.
Yeah, well, that's. I mean, I wrote down the title, so I'm definitely going to check out the book, Andrew. So, but
I got you. I got you beat. I just bought it right now.
Okay.
Great. It's a great book. And the reason I bought it is, you know, I've been contemplating the same thing for us. Like, what's the next sort of leg of media options? You know, how do we expand beyond our sort of personal talent, you know, which we've leveraged very effectively in our domain brokerage business, but how do we take that to the next level? How do we, you know, become a platform where anybody because I'm watching all these mediocre platforms launch in our space, and I say mediocre because they're focused on names that I don't think have value. I don't know whether the technology is mediocre. I'm sure the technology is fine. It's probably great, but you know, I don't think that they're targeting the real market of that I see, the market that we are mining in. And the PX story is, you know, obviously I've been watching firsthand from the beginning of ReviMedia, more or less, right up to now. And you know, you hear this a second time, so make sure you're paying attention. You've inspired me, Frans.
Oh wow! And this time it's recorded, so it's on record right now. Wow!
It won't stop me from denying you in the future, anyways.
I'll create a sound bit just to that and send it to you.
You didn't know that in today's world you're allowed to deny things which are even recorded and
maybe you misspoke.
I think what you said, Andrew, is it's the platform thought. And we call it the evolution. So, and you know, we see it as the holy grail that if you can become a platform and, you know, you can create a network effect. In other words, you can leverage the things you've built in the past. You can leverage your publisher network. You can leverage your clients. You know, if you do that right, and, you know, Amazon obviously did it right, and the eBays of this world, and Uber, and, you know, it's the network effect. And, that's exactly the core of our new strategies, that we want to leverage what we have and add more value to our advertisers and hopefully accelerate our growth as well. So,
you know who the first big tech platform, multi-sided platform was? Or the first, let's say, because I guess Amazon might have been earlier than this, but these guys were the first ones to sort of acknowledge what it was they were doing, not just trying to create an online store. Like you know, Amazon was initially essentially just an online store. They evolved into the platform. eBay, the same, more or less. But the first multi-sided platform who acknowledged themselves as an open, you know, multi-sided platform was OpenTable, the reservation system.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't realize they started that early, but it was like mid-90s.
Okay.
Wow. Well, I feel like I should get points for the term, because I've been saying I see us as matchmakers for years. So let's get back to ReviMedia and PX. So ReviMedia does not have a P or an X in it. What made you decide to acquire PX.com?
So that's a good question. So the first version of our platform was called LXP, Lead Exchange Platform, and it was we couldn't get the trademark for it. because there are some companies that used LXP, LXP, and we didn't want to have the word lead in our core platform name, because we also do calls and we also do clicks. So the name was a little outdated at the time. I'm talking about 2006, and I asked Andrew, like, hey, I'm looking for a domain name, so for our platform, and it needs to have an X and it needs to have a P. So we looked at several names. NXP, a couple out there, and he said, hey, by the way, you probably cannot afford it, but I also have px.com. So when Andrew says something like that, it's going to cost money. But
he's just goading you into saying yes.
Yes, exactly. So, but PX was the perfect name for us, and the P stands for public, and the X, it has something technology sound to it, and the X of exchange. So public exchange for leads and calls made total sense. And I have to admit that owning such a premium domain and a 2-letter one, we also felt that there's a very good asset and investment for the company to create more value for our investors.
So it sounds like the timing was right, because ReviMedia, you founded in 2010, but in 2016 you were starting to think about having a different name for it or a different domain for it.
Oh yeah, so the strategy we had at the time was to separate our platform as a separate service, and I needed a domain for that, and we end up buying px.com as our brand, and we basically created PX Inc., a separate company for it.
So it sounds like it was a matter that the timing was right for you, and this domain you knew, with the value of a 2-letter, that you could work it into a meaning for your
Exactly.
new brand.
And I have to say it, I love premium domains, and I love 2-letter ones, but it was the single only 2-letter one I would have bought at that time. Any other 2-letter name, I didn't buy it because it was a 2-letter name per se. I bought it because it was a perfect brand for our platform. Mm-hmm. It would have been, I don't know, WE or other 2-letter names I have seen, over the years, would not have been a match. I would have really been, I would have needed to be very creative to try to match that domain with what we do. So, but PX.
I want to ask you 2 questions, Frans.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I thought you were done, but you were.
No. Go ahead.
So, all right, two questions. And I don't know. I'm going to ask anyways because you've kind of rebranded anyway. So, some of this I don't know how much of it was for public information, but I think it's fine. So I know you would ask me to try and acquire Revi.com at some point.
Yeah.
Which we couldn't get. The guy wouldn't sell it, or he wanted it at a ridiculous price.
Yeah.
Did that play a factor in your decision to go after a new brand?
No, that was separate, because again, we really wanted to separate our platform from ReviMedia and have a separate name for that. That could not have been Revi, just because it would have been too similar to ReviMedia. We looked into Revi.com at the time. I always regret when we started a company. We started as a media company, like a publisher company.
Yeah.
And I always regret the word media in our name, because it's not what we do anymore today.
Yeah.
And, the word media puts us in a different category potentially. It's not a biggie. At the end, the name is a name. But I would have liked to acquire Revi.com. But as a general rule, I have that it needs to make sense. And first of all, if you want to have a premium domain, perfect, good investment, but it needs to make sense for your business and for the purpose. besides purely investments, and then also the amount needs to be justifiable from a business point of view. And this guy, I don't know, he can ask what he wants to ask, and but it didn't make any sense, and it wasn't nice to have. But for PX.com, it was a different story.
Yeah. So that brings me to the second question.
Yeah.
You were saying before, you're sort of trying to justify what does the PX mean. So part of my argument for why these two-letter.coms particularly are so valuable is that I almost think it doesn't need to mean anything, that PX stands on its own 2 feet, pun intended. I think, it's shorter than a brand. It's shorter than a name. It just instills trust. I don't know. I've always been an advocate for PX.com. I think we at Media Options have probably sold more two-letter.coms than anybody in the world. I think that's probably a true statement. And, I see the same story over and over and over again. The people that get it, they get it, and I have yet to see somebody who took the step, bought a two-letter.com, and then regretted it later. It hasn't happened to me yet. So, do you agree with that? That PX.com, it doesn't necessarily need to mean anything. It can mean publishing, it can mean publisher, it can mean public, it can mean whatever. So at the end of the day, you're PX.
Yeah. No, so to your point, so PX didn't made a lot of sense to us purely because the abbreviation, the letters P and the letter X. Yeah. But to your points, a two-letter name can be anything, and it has all the, it's short, it's memorable. It already has, quite some type-in traffic in general. It's easier to build links. It just has a lot of value, and I think the most important one is that it increases your credibility. If you go to a big advertiser, and we're working with big advertisers in our verticals. Yeah. If you say you're PX.com, it puts you in a different league potentially. At least it's better than lead-generation.info. With all respect to
even you say, okay, I'm ReviMedia.
Yeah.
ReviMedia, if a person doesn't know who ReviMedia is, you're calling up, you're ReviMedia, you're like every other media schmuck that calls them that they don't know. But you're PX.com, you're immediately somebody.
Yeah.
You're immediately somebody. There's an inherent level of trust, and trust is the currency of the internet. People say traffic is the currency of the internet, but you don't get traffic without trust. When people come to Google and they see their 10 options, they click on the one that they trust.
Yeah. And so people ask, so it's public information. We paid $1 million for it, right? And I'm sure Tess was going to ask that anyway, so I just throw it out there. And people ask me like, how can you justify such an investment? And and all that trust factor, and all the other advantages we just mentioned, is that quantifiable? It's difficult. It is difficult, but we have some examples, and I'm still collecting data, and I don't feel the need to justify that investment at all. But it is nice to collect data on better conversion, better click-through rate on your website, increased average page views on your website. I'm sure there are data points which we can start comparing with what we had on ReviMedia.com.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I don't know if you want to share it later, but when you accumulated some of that data, I would love to see it.
For sure. And I do the actual tangible impact we had was that people in the industry, they know that we own PX.com, and it's like, oh wow, that's a great name, and that's always the first reaction. It puts you on a little pedestal, and I guess it's a little ego booster there as well. But
don't discount that. That matters, right? So, a couple more questions that I had sort of jotted down here specific to PX. So, one thing that I've heard with not just two-letter.com, but just really great names in general, really names which resonate with people, is that it makes hiring easier. And if you're a tech business, the hardest thing to do is hiring. Tell me if I'm wrong, but tell me if you've seen that. Does having px.com, does that instill a sense of trust, longevity, or what, for whatever reason, do you think that it has an impact on hiring?
I don't know yet, to be honest. I guess it does. And again, all the advantages, more memorable. It makes a statement. So I guess
employees are going to have that as their email address, right? So it's like, there's a little ego thing there. It's like, I'm Tess at px.com. It's kind of a.
So I have a funny fact about that, actually. So Bas, my business partner, and myself, we immediately created email addresses F, my first letter, at px.com, and B at px.com. Just to make it as short as possible. Actually, one of the shortest domain names or email addresses you can have, besides the one-letter ones, and I guess .co. But there was an internal fight because obviously we have several names starting with an A, Alexi, Andre, Alexander. Everybody wanted to have the A at px.com. So we actually became like a bit of a tense situation. So we decided no first letters only. So I changed my email address to friends at px.com, which is still cool.
Yeah. Even for the CEOs, that's quite the leadership, Frans. And now everyone listening knows how to contact you.
There you go.
So what were the challenges of building your brand on px.com, especially with that shift from ReviMedia?
That's actually that's a great question, Tess, because that was the point I wanted to make, and I prepared a little bit for this interview. I don't want to make it come across like buy a two-letter name and that's it, and all the work is done. So it was very challenging to get a trademark. It was very important for us. And, when you have a two-letter one, it's very generic. So the trademark risk is not that high because it's hard to claim a two-letter trademark in general. If you don't have the trademark, it's also not easy for the other party to actually, accuse you from infringing their trademark.
Mm-hmm. Frans, is your trademark on PX or px.com or both?
Both.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have the text mark, the word mark PX, and we have the design mark px.com. But it was hard because there were like 20, maybe 30 existing PX trademarks out there. So I had to. I have separate agreements with 3 or 4 of them to allow them our brand next to theirs. And obviously there was not a similar company owning the trademark PX, so there were all different businesses in different industries. So it was not that hard, but it took time. It took almost 2 years.
Wow, that's impressive. Now, I'm sorry, I didn't understand you. I don't have a lot of familiarity with trademarks. What did you mean our brand next to theirs? Like just both of them existing, or you mean something else?
Yeah. So there were, let's say 20 companies, they already filed and registered the trademark PX. There's an oil company in Canada that, filed PX for whatever purpose. I don't remember.
Petroleum.
And when sorry?
Petroleum.
Yeah. It's a technology company, so they were like in drilling and gas and I don't know.
Okay. So you're just saying that they agreed that you could have your trademark and they would have theirs, and you wouldn't infringe on each other.
Yeah. So when you file your trademark, you get opposition, or the trademark authority says, sorry, we cannot grant you this application because of existing conflictive existing trademarks. And then it's up to you to work out, possible agreements with those existing trademarks. When you have that in place, you can refile, and hopefully the authorities say, okay, now you're fine and good to go.
Wow. So 2 years of work. So that's basically what you've been doing since you acquired it.
Yeah, and other challenges, of course, is like one of the things which stopped us from rebranding earlier was all the brand equity we've built on the ReviMedia. And I think I made it bigger in my head than it really was. But it's my little baby, so I just assumed that if we change the name of our baby, no one is going to know, the new name, and everybody's going to think, what happened with ReviMedia? And I think there was more fear than anything else. But the brand equity, and I'm referring to authority of the website, SEO, link building, social media profile, all that stuff you do as a company to build up your presence online, that's basically gone. And part of it we can redirect, and part of it we can do some cross promotions to move some of the brand equity to PX. But basically, with PX we had to start from point zero. And in those last 2 years, we have been doing so. And again, we have been postponing the rebranding for over a half year. But 2 weeks ago, we're like, yeah, this is it. We're going to do it.
So I feel like most companies would have that same view, that the brand equity, you build that for a reason. And yet, to a certain degree, that brand equity can mean that you're established enough that you're capable of rebranding. But most companies just, and especially if you're trying to sell a domain through, talking with the marketing folks, they're going to say, hey, we've already built this brand into what it is. What could you quantify or qualify, or how, because brand equity is difficult to do that with. What made you feel sure that you could, and what made you feel like maybe it wasn't a good idea in terms of numbers or data?
Okay, so it's a little bit of a glass half full and glass half empty discussion here. So there are always reasons not to do things, and so a lot, and it's very easy to come up with those reasons. But if you look at it from a glass half full approach and angle, and you say, hey, it's a great opportunity to reconnect with your existing partners and clients. Like, hey, we have a new brand and a new proposition. Hear this out. It's also refreshing, right? And the feedback of our clients was actually overwhelming. We send nice gifts to our clients with the new brand, and we send cornholes, and we send plans, and I don't know what. So we made it exciting, and then is it a new marketing opportunity, like a refreshing marketing approach, and a chance to revive your brand. So that's the way we approached it, and ReviMedia is still around. And I think that's also something we should not forget, is that ReviMedia is still around, but purely as an affiliate network. And I think that, I guess that also makes it easier that if people now go to ReviMedia, we can, and our ReviMedia team is still around partly, we can still use part of that brand equity. We're two separate companies, but at the end, the same mother, and there's still a tight relationship between the two.
And I think, the way that I approach these types of things is, as long as you're making forward progress, it's a net positive, right? Because like you said, there's a million reasons to not do things, like, in everything in life and business. And so as long as you're making forward progress, as long as what you're doing is growth and progress, you're leveling up. That's what I was looking for, leveling up. As long as you're leveling up, it's always going to be a net positive.
Yeah, I agree. Change is movement, and movement is progress.
It's necessary. If you don't change, if you're not changing, you're dying.
Yeah.
And I just think, Frans, the most visionary thing that I'm hearing is that you didn't have some giant crisis. You have the maturity in your business sense that you were able to do this proactively, to just continue that steady elevation. Is ReviMedia your first business venture?
No, so I had a company before called Imexus. It was one of the first mobile content companies out there. Started in 1999. Great ride as well. And we sold a lot of ringtones and horoscopes and jokes, and we also we built a great platform, and that we ended up selling it in 2006.
Okay.
So I've done some other stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, you have tremendous experience. I would like to see you develop a ringtone of Drew saying, "You inspire me."
Oh yeah, that's actually not a bad idea. I would put it on.
All right, let me know. I know you sold the company, but figure it out.
So this is what I want to know, right? Coming into this interview, ReviMedia essentially has rebranded to px.com. The company is centering around your platform, PX. What is the enterprise? I mean, we're here to discuss domains at the moment. We're here to talk about, entrepreneurialism. We're here to talk about, digital media and how commerce works. But what is the enterprise value of that asset? What is the resulting enterprise value of px.com to your organization? And I know you don't have a specific number, but what I want to do is just sort of work around how do you establish what that value is and see if we can't just, sort of fall on a number.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, just to jump back a minute first, I feel like before you put the whole enterprise value, I'm wondering, just the advantage that you have. You're saying, PX gives you that additional credibility. It's that ego boost, which really is something. I feel like we need a different word for that. It's positioning you as a leader. Can you put
when you go out and you buy a premium domain, whether it's a two-letter.com or a one-word.com, when you go out and you buy a premium domain name that represents the best version of your brand and you go out to market with it, it sends a signal. It sends a very strong signal to your audience, to your consumers, to your vendors, to your partners, to your bank. It sends a signal to everybody, your investors. It sends a signal that we are growing. It sends a signal that we are strong, that we are here for the long run. It's a signal. It's it's a signal to the market, and
So I don't want to. How do I put this? Because this is
overemphasize.
Well, yeah. So this is obviously a forum for domainers, and it's about domain value, and I completely agree with the value of premium domains, but I do want to state that it should not be overvalued in the sense that there was always like a context versus content discussion, like content is king. This is a little bit the same. Like you have a domain name, it's a great asset, but at the end, it's what you do with it.
You can only compare things with all those variables which you can't control being equal, right? So,
what do you mean with that?
So I mean, like, this isn't a really great analogy, but like, because the companies sort of have veered off to do different things. But if you say you've got px.com, you've got ReviMedia.com, and let's just say that they were doing the exact same thing, all other things being equal, px.com sends a stronger signal to the market.
So that
right? You've got the same content, you've done the same link building, you've got the same team, you've built a great platform on both. If all other variables, all other factors being equal, can we compare, the domain of this company versus the domain of this company? It's like looking into Google, and you've got the top 3 results, let's say the top 3 organic results, and all 3, if you're in a competitive vertical, all 3 of those companies have worked hard to get there. They've all done, produced great content. They must have great teams. They must be doing great link building. They must be, consistently publishing.
Yeah.
They must be, those things have to be equal, right? Because
so
those things aren't being done. Those are the minimum viable factors. So if those things aren't being done, then you're not going to get there in the first place. But once you're there, then let's compare number 1, number 2, and number 3 and say, well, what makes this one just slightly better than that one?
Yeah.
So can you put a value on having px.com now that you've relaunched instead of platformexchange.com or gogorevi.com? Do you think you can put a value on that?
Yeah, so I mean, we're obviously biased here in this call, and probably also all the viewers were somewhat biased, and but
hold on. What is bias, right? Because so I'm biased. Obviously, I'm a broker. I have a continued interest in
Yeah, we're educated.
The value of domain, but that's not your business, right? So you're not necessarily biased. You put your money where your mouth is. You believe in the value, and so you literally put up $1 million to buy the domain. So I wouldn't say
bias in the sense that you taught me a lot about domain investment, and I've been hobbying around since we met each other, and so I was obviously aware of the incremental value of a 2-letter domain purely as a domain investor. Mm-hmm. But you're right. So I put the money where my mouth is. So if we would compare apples to apples, exactly the same business with exactly the same marketing, link building, all that on ReviMedia versus px.com, I can state that px.com will have more. It will be perceived as higher value and will have more impact just because of the domain. I can confirm that. But having said that, I don't have data for that test. It's very hard. I'm going to collect some data, and once I have it, I'll share with you, because we do have it from our landing pages. So, for example, we have bestquotes.com, and we also have, and I'm just making this up, but we also have best-insurance-quotes.info. We do have numbers that bestquotes.com converge better than the other domain. But again, it's very hard because you need to be able to compare apples to apples, and that's not easy. But I'm going to see if I can collect some data which I can share with you in a later stage. I think that will be very valuable.
That would be really fascinating. Yeah. Okay.
I always just emphasizing. Can I say something? About. So I think we all agree that a 2-letter domain has great value, and for all the advantages we mentioned earlier in this call. But having said that, I always give the example of Apple, Amazon. Amazon is called by a river in Brazil, for God's sake. I mean, there was some kind of idea behind it. Eh?
Yeah, but irrelevant. The point is, it doesn't have to be an exact match to what your business does. These are two different strategies.
But my point is,
it has to be a brand that resonates with your audience.
Yeah.
All it has to do is resonate. People have to hear it, and they have to think, "Oh, of course I know that company." Yeah. Everybody knows the Amazon. Everybody knows Apple. Even before these companies existed, the word resonated with people. It was familiar. That's the key.
I understand, but my point I want to make is that at the end, it's about the context and the brand they created around such a name, which gives the, and yes, I agree. I mean, Amazon, if you would have told me when did Amazon start? In 1990 something?
97.
Yeah. So when you would have told me like, hey, Amazon, I would have thought about a river in Brazil. I would have not thought about, an e-commerce platform and the giant company it became. But it, so it helped probably, and Apple too, it helped them to to grow the company. But at the end, it's also about the context and the business you create around it. That's my point.
If Bezos had called his company jeffsbooks.com, they would not be the company they are today, right? Even if they had
statements, I think I agree, but it's hard to quantify.
It is. It's very hard to quantify, and this is the reason I'm pushing you and emphasizing this specific point, because this is the missing link in domains. This is why when I call up a CEO, a CMO, a CTO, and I'm trying to explain to them why they need to buy this domain, that it's not like, oh, this would be nice for you to have. You need this name. The bestversion.com of their company's brand, or a product or a service that's foundational to their company. This is the missing link. It's trying to explain why this domain is fundamentally better than another. And it is. It's hard to quantify. There's very little data, very, very, very few ways to collect data, because like you said earlier, it's got to be apples to apples. You got to be able, how do you compare apples to apples?
But a question for you, because I know, so another angle to look at it. So what if Amazon did a crappy job? Were not able to make those deals with the wholesalers of books. They were not able to get visitors to their sites. Then Amazon.com would be a great name with like a mediocre business, most likely.
But there's a lot of those.
Yeah.
Right. So my point is not that
and they could
domain
could be acquired, or they can be divested, right? I mean, they can divest the domain, or they can be acquired by someone with a better vision. Whereas if you have a crappy business model or mediocre business model and a mediocre domain,
then you have nothing.
Yeah.
Actually, Tess makes a really good point, because this is actually something that I emphasize when I'm talking to a startup. When I'm talking to a startup who's launching a company and they're on the fence, or I don't know if I can, if it's responsible, or I don't know if I can afford to spend that kind of money. And, we're usually talking about something between 150 grand and 350 grand, that ballpark, for a really bang on, great oneword.com. What I say to them is, look, you come to me and you're looking to raise capital for your company. And you come to me and you're .io, you're .whatever, .something, you're get this, try this, download this, whatever prefix or suffix you put on your name. Okay. Doesn't add anything to your balance sheet. That is absolutely worthless asset. Now you come to me and you say, I am usedcars.com, or I'm, purple.com, I'm orange.com. That puts a backstop on my investment. So what Tess was saying is, even if you put a crappy company on a great brand, if I'm an investor in that brand, if I'm an investor in that company, my investment's never going to go to zero. Okay. Now, that doesn't necessarily make you feel good. If I invest, millions of dollars into a company that says they're going to be the next, unicorn, and now all that's left of this company is their domain name, I'm still not getting my investment back. But the point is that it strengthens your balance sheet. It strengthens your company. You are adding an asset to your company that will continue to grow. And your domain name, when you bought it, Frans, that domain is worth about 20-30% more at the wholesale level than when you paid, than when you bought it 2 years ago.
Okay, so I have a different way to ask this question, because we do want to hear some kind of enterprise value that you can put on this. So what about this? You invested $1 million in the domain. You invested how much do you think? How much do you think you've invested so far? You sent all your clients gifts. You rebranded. You obviously had some the trademark costs over 2 years. The costs of building the website, the moving things over onto that platform. How much have you invested, and how much would you think you've seen of ROI so far on that investment?
Wow, guys, I was not prepared for this question. I can say something. I mean, the trademark cost, the rebranding cost, the website development, and some other stuff. I mean, it's not the end of the world. It's significant investment. I would say $250,000 to $300,000 purely for rebranding the marketing around it, the presence for the clients, and lawyer costs.
Okay. So included with acquiring the domain, maybe 1.3 million.
I guess that's and then some opportunity cost and some some all the time we spent on discussing this, and I wouldn't be able to put a number on it, but I think it's pretty. Let's say 1.3 in total. Yes.
Okay. And when do you think you'll see your ROI on that? Where do you think, if you had to sell your company today, do you think you'd get 1.3 million more for it? Do you think you'll have that 1.3 million more in business that you've already gained that much in business? Just for our audience, too, what is your business's annual gross income? What kind of figures are we talking about here?
So just tell me, just let me know when I have to take off my clothes as well, and then we're fully transparent here. Okay, let's do one at a time. Okay, these were a lot of questions packaged into one. So
can I put in the headline? Franz offers to take off his clothes. Do you think that will get more visitors?
No, I didn't offer it. I said, when are you going to ask me? So. The title can be like Tess asked, Frans to take his clothes. That would have been more accurate. Okay. So one at a time. So the PX domain is on our balance sheet, obviously, and it is one of the assets we have. And yes, we invested, let's say, 1.3 million total to rebrand and to move the business to px.com. But I don't approach it this way. I'm not approaching it this. We're not in the stage. We're not a startup like we discussed in the previous section. So I don't approach it anymore as a backstopper on my investment, or if we go bust, then at least we have a domain which we hopefully can sell for the same amount or a little bit more. This is an integrated part of my business. And that's why I'm referring to the context around the business we're building. Just to give an idea, we invested millions, over 150,000 man hours in our platform. So
150,000 man hours.
Yes, 150, and we did the whole analysis. So it's a huge platform. It's really a big platform. We have millions of lines of code.
Did you say millions of lines? What did you say?
Of code.
Of code. Okay.
Yeah. So that is my real investment, guys. That is significantly higher than the name we put on it.
Right.
And the one doesn't go without the other, So we established in this call that platform with a name that doesn't make any sense probably won't be as successful as a platform that's called px.com.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you ask me about my the enterprise value, I couldn't honestly answer that question. Does PX have significant impact, or is going to have a significant impact? I'm confident it will. But at the end, it's a good name. But at the end, it's about the business results. At the end, it's about growing the revenue and make profit. So it's just hard. And PX is just one of the parts. If we don't do our marketing right, or if we develop a crappy platform.
But again, those are all minimum viable products for a successful business, period. Okay?
Period.
You need to do your marketing right. You need to have a good team. You need to build the right technology. You need, these are all the minimum viable products. You will never have a competitor unless they do the same. You will never, that's a must. Those things are just they're a given. They have to be a given. Otherwise, you're not going to be successful. So the question, how much more successful? How much? Is your conversion rate higher? And I know you don't have the answer to these questions, so I'm asking them rhetorically. But what I always say is, you cannot build a skyscraper on a bed of sand. Okay, if you want to build a skyscraper, you need a solid bedrock foundation, and px.com is bedrock, right? If you were Revi's lead exchange, I don't know. I just I, of course, who am very biased, can say that I think you would have zero chance to be where you are today, to even be able to afford to put 150,000 man hours into building this platform if you were Revi's lead exchange and not, and I'm not saying px.com is the only name that you could have, built this company on. But having a name like that puts you on bedrock, and you can build on bedrock as high as you want to go. That's the point.
And I agree. And that's the whole reason why we invested in this domain. And that's why we invested what we invested. So I think we established that. And so to put an enterprise value, let's put it this way. If a big Chinese investor, and I get daily emails, is PX for sale? At px.com. If a big company would come and say, hey, we'll pay you 4 million or 5 million, I wouldn't do it. Just because it's such an integrated part of our business. And
so
it's
that is actually the best answer you can give to this question is this is what I believe, right? If you're not a buyer, you're a seller. If you're not a seller, you're a buyer. And it doesn't mean you need to go out and buy, but it means that you're long, okay? You're either long or you're short. And so if somebody comes in with a $5 million offer and says, Frans, I want to buy px.com, I'll give you 5 million, you're going to say no. So we know that the enterprise value is greater than 5 million, right?
Because it's such an integrated part of our strategy, and because we're in this for the longer run, and to build a huge company on this, and to really grow this, and and it's not about the value of the domain itself. It's about, at the end, it's about the business, and the domain is a very integrated part of that business.
And the advantage the value of the advantage that domain over another one gives you. Yeah, that's a fantastic answer. Thank you. And Frans, you are very number driven. Do you think you ever would have made this acquisition?
You have no idea. You can see the spreadsheets he has. I can't even make sense of them.
Actually, it's to be honest, I mean, I would love to take the credit, and I'm not that of a number person, and my business partner is the real number person. So otherwise, I probably would not have been here without his number skills and analytical skills. But that on the side note, I remember sending you some Excel sheets, Andrew, and I remember I really impressed you. So that was one of my highlights.
And I've talked with Bas a lot over the years, not since I left GoDaddy, but I've talked with him many, many times, and he is. So we have one numbers person here and an even more numbers person, or the two of you run this business. And yet we've sat here and kind of beat a dead horse trying to get a number out of you and really struggled. So that's kind of like that's the real struggle for us in helping people to understand domain name values, is that oftentimes they can't be so quantifiable. So what do you think, not only you, but your business partner, what made you, not being able to have any numbers, be willing not only to acquire this domain, but to invest all this time and energy to rebrand to it? Since you don't have a number, do you think it's only because you knew Drew and learned about domain name value year after year after year, or
no? So I mean, that's a good question, and I completely understand the challenges of potential buyers of domain names to in your shoes, to actually show them the potential value, or what could be the value. And I struggle with that as well. And I guess every domain investor listening to this can relate to that, because the market goes up, the market goes down. You can look at the exact match a keyword and see how many visitors or searches it has in Google. And, the couple of data points we have to quantify an amount for a domain. And for the two-letter domain, we basically took all the historical public sales of two-letter domains, from fb.com of $8 million, if I remember correctly.
8.5, I think.
Sorry again?
I think it was 8.5.
Yeah, 8.5. Yeah, and so we looked at the public sales, and we tried to make sense out of it. We looked at big companies, GE, HP.
XP.com is not the biggest two-header.com sale, by the way.
Sorry again?
It's not the biggest two-header.com sale, by the way.
No.
I'm not going to tell you what it is.
No, I'm yeah. Anyway, so we tried to make sense, but at the end, it was a business decision. Like, okay, we need a strong brand for our platform. We really believe in this. We invested big time in our platform, and we need a killer name. And the name was such a good match that at the end, it was not only about money. And I see the challenge for you guys, to convince a CEO or a business owner to invest in a domain. You need to have some data points. And I invite any business owner to look at it the same way we did. What's its value to you? And it needs to make sense. If Andrew would have asked $5 million for the domain, I would have said, well, sit on the roof and not going to do it because that would be too much. But it made sense, and it was high. It was higher than we were willing to pay. But at the same time, like, the downside is not that big. They always keep their value. It's a valuable asset. So yeah, that's how we approached it. I don't know if that answers the question.
I think it does. I think what you said with coming back to, if somebody offered you $5 million today, you would say no. And that speaks to the enterprise value. You said, what is the value to you as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as an investor? Right? What is the value of this domain name to you, to your business? And I think a great approach to figuring out what is the value of the domain to you as a business owner, as a founder, as an investor, is to ask the question that you asked yourself of, if somebody came along, okay, if your company, we just sold bungalow.com to a startup that's doing co-living stuff. And I'm not going to talk about the price. We signed an NDA, but if, it was a lot of back and forth, but we can't afford it. And they subsequently raised like $60 million or something, so yeah, can't afford it. But like 2 weeks later. But the point is, if you ask yourself, if you did own it, okay, if I'm sitting there negotiating bungalow.com and say, well, if you already own bungalow.com, and I came along and I said, look, I don't want to sell you bungalow.com. I got a buyer that wants to buy bungalow.com from you, and you're at the exact stage as you are right now in your company. What would you sell it for? And if it's a lot more than the price I'm asking you to buy the domain for, then it's worth it. It's worth it for your business. It doesn't mean what the value of the domain is, but it means it's the value of the domain to your business.
Yeah, and I have another angle to take on this one, because I have some people in my network, and I try to help them with finding a good name, or I knew that they were looking for a new company name or whatever it was, or for a startup. And the point I want to make is that it's also depending on your ambition. So I'm an ambitious person. I'm a perfectionist. And I aim for the best of the best. And that's not always possible, but I'm aiming for that. Yeah. And if you take your business seriously and you really want to become the biggest in whatever you're doing or want to do, a good name, a good brand is part of it. And sure, you can probably be as successful or maybe a little bit less successful with a lesser name. But to your point earlier, that's probably not going to add any value to your balance sheet. So if your goal is to have an exit in the future and to build up value as a company as a whole, it's not only about making revenue and profit. It's also about creating value, either in platform development, in creating a great brand, having a killer domain. So my point is that it also depends on the ambition level of the potential buyer, and it also depends on the, on the longer term plans they have for either an exit or whatever it is, or keep it for their children for the rest of their lives. So there's a lot of variables taking into account here. But I'm always surprised. And I have some examples. I cannot mention any names, but a couple of weeks ago, I had a guy. He's very successful in what he does. He did well for himself, and he has a bullshit domain name. And I told him, like, for $10,000-$15,000, maybe 20 max, you can buy a .com or the D.com. It's for sale. And like, yeah, I mean, I don't need it. I'm fine. And it's like, domain name is not that important for me. And I'm like, I don't understand. I really don't. But he has done well for himself. So be it. I mean, who am I to judge that? But I am surprised with a $10,000 or $20,000, whatever it is, relatively limited investments, that people are hesitant to do so.
But it's what you were saying. You're always striving for the best. You don't want to put a ceiling on your growth because having an inferior domain name, it boxes you in. It puts a limit to how big you can become.
Or a possible limit. A possible limit,
Possible
again.
Limit.
Yeah.
I came up with an analogy the other day. Chris Zucker, our broker, forwarded me an email. He was marketing a domain name, and this was really a perfect buyer for the domain. And they didn't even ask the price. Chris didn't even give him a price. He just said, hey, we're marketing the domain. It's not exactly what he wrote, but are you interested in discussing it? He didn't mention the price. They didn't even ask for the price. They just said, no, we're not interested. And I'm telling you, this is a big company, and it's literally the bang on domain for their company. I mean, it's like, how do you not already own this? And they just said, nope, not interested. They didn't even ask about the price. The price could have been cheap. What if the price was $5,000, And it wasn't, but they didn't even ask. And he said, look, I don't even know what to respond to that. And I thought about it, and I came up with what I think is an interesting analogy that I want to refine, and talking about it helps me refine that. But the message is that, a domain name is like a pogo stick, okay? So if you are standing in place and you jump up in the air and you come down, the force of your mass, your body, is limited to your body weight, okay? But if you're going to pogo stick, you're focusing all of your force onto the very tip of the pogo stick. So all of your mass is being focused into one single point. And now the force of your mass is not your body weight, it's exponential, okay? It's actually, I think it's like the force of 1 foot of an elephant. Like an average male on a pogo stick, when you come down on that pogo stick, I think the force measured at the end of the pogo stick is the equivalent of when an elephant stomps with 1 foot. And it has an amplifying effect, okay? And a domain name is your singular point, your singular touch point. The same way that aimed at that pogo stick is the singular touch point of your mass with the concrete. Your domain name is a singular touch point with your consumer, with your customer, with your audience, with whoever it is you're trying to target. It's a single touch point that allows you to amplify your brand, your mass, your company, your message, your brand, your product, whatever it is that you are trying to project. You can amplify it through focusing all of your energy and your resources through a single touch point with your audience. And I think that's true. I think that resonates true. Focusing your energy and your resources through a singular touch point that you control, not a third party social media network, not a third-party publishing network or whatever. You're communicating your message through a single point.
Yeah.
And
I think it's
by doing that, you amplify the effect. Yeah. Does that sound true?
Yeah, good point. Again, I mean, I want to, I agree. But it's still about the context and how you get to the point and how it's not only about the name itself. But I completely agree. I think it's a matter of educating as well, and
that's what we're here for on DomainSherpa.
Yeah, exactly. So if you can show a CEO or a business owner, like, listen, this could be. This could be the impact. You're missing so many type-ins. You're missing, like, if you have the .net, how many visits do you have today? Probably 10% are going to that are going to .com instead of to your site. How much value?
In most cases, more like 20%.
Okay, well, so if it's 20%, how much value? What's your average revenue per visitor or per conversion? And try to put a number on it. It's obviously different for each business.
Yeah.
It's a matter of education. So, but you guys have been doing well, right? With selling domain names.
Yeah, we're doing great. The world is waking up in a world where you've got all these privacy concerns with Facebook and social media, and you've got Twitter and Instagram shutting down people's businesses at will. And you've got no say and no control over that, no insight into why. People are waking up to the fact that you need to control your brand, you need to control your messaging, you need to control that point of contact with your audience, your consumer, your whatever. And so slowly but surely, it's a windy road, right? I mean, I'm always pushing in one direction that this is why you need your domain, and then suddenly something happens in the business world, in the political world, in the economic world that shifts people's focus, and then it's suddenly like, oh, well, here's another reason, right? And I've been doing this now a long time, and it's like every year, every 2 years, it's like some new reason pops up of why a premium domain name is great, right? So it changes.
Yeah, we're coming to the end here at today's show, and I think I really appreciate, Frans, you letting us work until we could excavate some type of numbers out of you, and I'm really, really interested to hopefully have you back on the show when you're have more data points. But my last question for you is, what's Panama like without Drew Rosner?
Paradise. No, I mean it's quiet. It's very quiet, But I'm struggling through each day and cry myself to sleep. It's I miss Andrew a lot. But I'm sure I'm going to see him, somewhere on this planet, and we'll keep in touch, of course. So, like today.
Absolutely.
So we're all traveling a lot. But yeah, Panama changed a little bit. That's why I moved into his house, to at least to stay close to the memory of Andrew.
Keep that memory apart.
Well, thank you so much for all your time today, Frans. This was really, really interesting and informative and fun.
Perfect. Yeah, for me too.
Anything you want to communicate to the audience? Any ask or message you want
to? Are you asking me?
Yeah. I mean, so for example, a lot of our audience is not just domain investors, but we've got a lot of affiliate marketers and publishers who listen to DomainSherpa.
So this is the area where I can do some self-promotion?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Shameless self-promotion now.
Okay. Well, so for anyone that listens and viewing this interview, if you are a publisher and you're in affiliate marketing, you're buying traffic and promoting third-party offers, you're welcome to join us. We're mainly looking for API publishers selling leads. So actually publishers that have their own websites collecting data, and we can help you with monetizing those leads and data as the best. Mainly in mortgage, insurance, and home services, but we also have other verticals. So feel free to reach out. And the same pitch for the advertiser side. If you're a lead buyer, specifically in the US, then we welcome you to join PX.
And then just go to px.com to learn more? Correct.
And my email address, feel free to reach out with any questions. I already mentioned it earlier, but my email is Frans, Frans, @px.com.
Excellent.
If you misspell px.com after this interview, don't bother sending an email.
Okay. Watch a few more Sherpa episodes.
Okay, guys. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for coming, Frans. What a treat.
Awesome.
Thank you
Bye.
to the Sherpa Network. See y'all next time. Bye.